Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be joined by our next guest, Angie Adams. She is the CEO of Pencil. How are you doing, Angie?
I'm doing well today, Jeremy. How about you?
Doing well. So Pencil, we get to dive into the efforts, the good work you're doing. Let's talk about some history and context, though, and your work with Metro Nashville Public Schools. So give us a history lesson for Pencil.
Sure. First, I always like to explain, yes, Pencil is a wonderful writing implement, but we are also an acronym. So our acronym is Public Education Needs Community Involvement and Leadership. We firmly believe that. We have been around for 38 years, and we're actually created by several CEOs of prominent corporations in town who wanted a way to get their employees actively volunteering inside school buildings and supporting public school students. So thankfully, companies who started us, like Ingram Industries and HCA, are still great partners today. So I always like to give a shout out to them. And right now we are managing over 750 businesses and organizations who partner with us to get their employees involved in the public school system.
I love it. And you do a lot. And so let's dive in, because talk about some of the different ways that people can plug in and the employees and different programs. You have a number of different programs, everything from reading programs to working with the academies. I mean, it covers a pretty wide spectrum.
It does. And I will say that at this point in time, when it's back to school season, so many folks think about school supplies, and that is a very tangible way that we support the school system and students. We have a component of our work called the LP Pencil Box. So when Louisiana Pacific came to town about 13 years ago, they asked if we would create a teacher resource center where teachers could come and get free supplies to distribute to students in their classroom. So I'm very proud to say that last academic year, we distributed $1.8 million worth of school supplies to students and teachers. And so we are always needing volunteers to help us sort product, make student kits, make teacher supply boxes, and help teachers move through our space and get the supplies they need. We're even doing curbside delivery these days. So that is a huge push. But as you touched on, volunteerism still is our largest component of our work, mostly in our high schools, because of the high school model being a career academy model and being structured around having the business community actively involved in that educational process. So whether it's hosting this year virtual field trips, virtual job shadows, or being a virtual guest speaker in a classroom, giving students real life exposure to careers and to the education needed for those careers is really, really vital. And so we probably have over 350 businesses involved just in that aspect alone.
Yeah, and I was about to say that the fact is, with it being virtual, it kind of removes any excuse, because it's like, hey, look, you can do this wherever you are in the world. You can do it from the comfort of your home, and using technology in a way. I mean, while the pandemic has caused some pretty hard, difficult circumstances, at the same time, some of the opportunities that have come out of it have made it easier to engage. Obviously, it's a little different, and the ideal would be in person, but using virtual allows you some really unique opportunities to engage the business community in that regard.
You're exactly right. And it feels very ironic now that even before the pandemic, we were actively looking at implementing virtual platforms for volunteer engagement because traffic was so challenging. And so we are just fast tracking all of those platforms, and we'll roll out those virtual platforms in the next couple of weeks. So that work can continue. And certainly the school district is firmly committed to having that volunteer engagement continue and support students. And even at the elementary school level. So while I have enjoyed, and hundreds of volunteers have enjoyed, reading one-on-one weekly with struggling elementary school readers, we will shift that to an online platform as well. Because right now it's so important just to give the kids motivation that they need to log on, that they need to focus on their schoolwork, which it's so much more challenging to do when they're all the distractions of your home and you're 6 years old.
When you have individuals who say, hey, I want to read and work on the sight words and work on reading with the children, and also too, I would love to volunteer to speak and talk about my career, is it easier, obviously, to go through you all and let you all kind of navigate that process for them? Or walk us through that, kind of when someone raises their hand, how do you start engaging them?
So we are a relationship management company. So I think we are well poised to know what schools are needing and which schools need resources more than others, because certainly it isn't equitable around the district. So we work hard to know where the needs are, exactly what those needs are, and then to make it very easy for individuals or organizations to plug in. Because certainly to get them, if they're motivated to reach out and want to get started helping, we want to plug them in and have them feel useful and to be useful as quickly as possible. So I think we just simply make it easier that you don't have to go knock on 3 different school doors and say, hey, what can I help you with? We already know exactly what those needs are and can plug people in quickly.
Share a little bit, because you mentioned obviously the huge number in terms of the resources that you were able to give access to for the teachers. When you talk about the growth of achievement and things like reading comprehension, what are some of the things that you work with the schools to measure to talk about the impact on that side of your volunteers and your team being able to pour in?
You know, one thing that a lot of people may not think about is simply attendance. We have over 3,000 homeless students within our school district. So Pencil actually operates 4 school-based family resource centers, and those family resource centers are focused on just helping remove barriers to attendance, whether that is remote attendance or in-person attendance, computers, supplies, food, housing assistance, to help those kids have an easier time to actually show up. And then once the child is participating in school, we are looking at end of semester test scores, end of year test scores. We're looking at progress on specific assessments during the year. We're looking at how many students actually had a field trip opportunity, or how many students actually had a job shadow opportunity, because we know that those are so meaningful for students. And then we simply ask our volunteers frequently to give us feedback on their experience as well, because certainly this only works if both sides of the relationship are getting their needs met.
When you look at pre-COVID and everything, that we're talking about in a normal year, and then obviously now leading in where things are in disruption, and I feel like now more than ever, the support system is going to be needed. Talk about some of the things that you're already looking for with the new school year that, either you're going to have to do differently, you're going to have to definitely do a lot more of. Like, how is it kind of reshaping your approach with this new school year to making sure that the students really do have everything that they need to be successful?
I will first give a shout out to the district and say that the district really guides our work. So I'm always quick to point out that Pencil doesn't create programs. We really resource and staff programs that the district creates. So something as simple as the reading work with elementary school students, the district has asked us to subtly focus a little bit more on the students' social and emotional needs. And are they getting what they need in their home environment? Are they feeling any risk or threat within their home environment? Because they just don't have that regular interaction with adults outside their home that they're accustomed to in terms of being able to share any challenges they're experiencing. So whether it's something as simple as that, or understanding that if you're, a first grader, you actually need pencils, paper, scissors, glue, because the district is now distributing paper-based work packets for those students to do at home to learn some basic skills. But if they don't have this basic supplies that are typically available in a classroom, they simply can't do that work. So now, instead of us thinking about providing supply boxes to teachers to distribute, we're actually creating student kits that can be distributed at individual school sites, which is a complete shift of our delivery model, which means that ironically, we need more volunteers to do that packaging in a time when we can have fewer volunteers in our space. But I'm always thankful that anytime we put out a call to action, we have such a huge response. Overwhelmingly, the community wants to support our district and our students. And so we just make that easy for folks to give back to what they're already passionate about.
And I feel like that, especially on the business side, it makes a lot of sense, because as a business owner, as a business leader, as any executive, you realize that in order for your company to be successful, the community needs to be successful. And that relies on a good education system. And when you talk about public education, these are the future workers, the future leaders. This is the talent pool. And so to me, that's where just the light bulb definitely needs to go off, is that everyone needs to be involved in this, because this is everyone's benefit in terms of the ripple effect of pouring into the school system. It creates everything in terms of opportunities for everyone. So I think it's really important, the work that you're doing. Talk about, on your end, some of the major goals, some of the major things that, like, what, in other words, what do you want everyone to know about for Pencil, especially leading into this new school year? What are some of the major objectives on your end?
I think our objectives always and forever are to make sure that individuals understand the power that spending even 30 minutes a week or an hour a month can have on students. So even though someone might agree to be a speaker to a classroom of 20 students virtually and talk about how they use algebra in their daily life, they may end up touching 4 or 5 kids in a very personal way. And now they motivate those kids to focus on their schoolwork in a different way before, because now they've opened up the student's eyes to what their future could look like in ways that the student hadn't before. So I think that is absolutely critical that continue. And to your point, it's now even easier. You can just log on remotely from your living room, speak to a class for 30 minutes, log off and go about your day, and make a tremendous impact. Also too, I will say that, again, just to the analogy of our name is Pencil, the most requested school supply forever and always in any community are pencils. So to help us literally make sure that students have pencils and paper at their home, and even to do an hour of volunteerism within our Teacher Resource Center can end up having a huge impact on a large number of students. So really this year we're focused on continuing to manage to get those supplies out and to make sure that we can continue to provide access to working adults for our students, so that students have their eyes open to opportunities that are ahead in their futures.
Talk about the ways we can help. Already there's so many themes that have been kind of, bubbling up in terms of the volunteerism, obviously being able to do the virtual reading, and obviously the job shadowing, like you mentioned, and career, talking about your career, the pencil donations and supplies. But what are some of the ways that we can help?
I will always and forever say that you can invest. And I don't think it's giving. I think it is investing, because I think if you decide to give money to a nonprofit, that you are expecting a return on that. So I'm always proud to say that our cash budget is $1.5 million a year, but we typically return more than $5 million to the district in terms of supplies and volunteerism that come back. So I think we're a great investment opportunity. And then in just investing your time and also investing your personal energy. I think so many of us forget to pay attention to the conversations the school board has, or we forget that it's important to vote when it's time to elect new school board members. Forget that even votes at a national level trickle down and have significant impact on our local school district and our local students. So I think even if you don't have the desire to volunteer and engage with students, just to think about your role as a citizen, and that the decisions you make along the way have impact on students in your community, is really important as well.
Putting on your hat of just, sharing advice, I'm thinking, for listeners, especially when this goes as a podcast and anyone around the world can listen to it, for other organizations who are trying to get more people involved in education, to get more businesses involved in being a part of the education system, to get more volunteers involved, what would your advice be, or your words of encouragement be to them to help get more people involved in education and giving back?
Jeremy, to your point earlier, I think whether you think of these students and your impact on these students as impacting your future workforce, your future customers, honestly, your future next door neighbors, just thinking about the impact that you can have on these individuals. And then also, it never fails that whenever we have especially brand new volunteers engage with the student, the volunteers come away touched so much more than the student was touched. Because I think you put the context of your life and your career and who you are and decisions you've made in a very different context once you engage with the student, who sees you in a very different light because you are an adult and you're magical in their eyes. So I always think it's just flat out nurturing to yourself to think about engaging with the student and realizing the energy you get back from that student is based on the energy you give. And certainly for years now, I've mentored an elementary school student in reading every week. And I leave there like floating on cloud nine because those little kids look at me like I'm the most amazing person on the world because I stopped my adult life for 30 minutes and read books with them.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And it's to me, it's the perfect way to frame it and look at it as well. Talk about how we can get in touch. So website, social media, phone number, where do we go to get involved?
Best places to start with our website, pencilforschools.org. You can find everything you need to know there, whether it's making an investment, launching a background check to get started engaging one-on-one with students, finding a link to volunteer in our LP pencil box. Everything starts there. I will say that we always have interesting activities ahead. So something we do every fall is called Principal for a Day. And that's also a great way to just get engaged and learn a little bit more. Maybe you don't know where you want to plug in or how you want to plug in. So that's a great way to get to know a principal, get to know a school, and further figure out what your path forward is. You can always check us out on any of the social medias. Again, Pencil for Schools, and we would love to work with you.
Well, Angie, thank you for all you and your team do. Thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.